Majestic. I've never heard of them three native tribes. EBE. It's not surprising. Your history shows that the conqueror seldom preserves any history of their victims. I speak of the natives in this landmass, those called Indians, mostly on your eastern and southern borders and in the ribbon of land that connects yours to the southern continent. Navajos, Aztecs, Incas, the Olmecs and the Toltec cultures. These were all greater than your own civilization at the time when you were burning witches and killing their cats, which brought a plague that killed millions of your ancestors. Of course you drove them mad and destroyed them with venereal disease and smallpox. Those you didn't slaughter for their gold. Majestic. Oh. EBE. And your social pundits speculate and joke about why we don't land in front of your nation's Capitol building and shake hands. We are different, not insane. Nice answer. Majestic, but we have changed. Western civilization is now the leader in this world for freedom and humanity. Oh dear. Did he seriously believe that fantasy act? EBE, two things. First, we believe that or we wouldn't be here now. Also, tell that to the millions of Hebrews your Western civilization has destroyed in the past decade, or the millions of Negro families whose sons died to stop the madman Hitler, but who does not have plumbing in their homes as we speak. 72 years later, most of them still don't. Yes, you make progress, and that is hopeful for you, but emotionally, you are very different from us. Not primitive. That label would be pure egotism on our parts, but you are very different and frightening to us. We are trying to learn to overcome those differences before your runaway technology thrusts you upon us without choice. Majestic, we have no space travel capability. How could we harm you? EBE, in our terms, you are very close to that point. And he asked, do you have small children? The answer was yes. Well, they will grow up in a world where space travel is taken for granted. And before they make you a grandfather, Earthmen will be in space. Majestic. All right, so you've been visiting us for some time. I have no choice but to accept that, even though I'd love some proof. The proof. Proof is only garnered by those who wish to see it. Many don't, and that is a fact. Where they believe man only started 6,000 years ago because the church told you so, and then believe hunter-gatherers built the pyramids within 500 years of life starting. And they call us conspiracy theorists. Majestic went on, but you still didn't tell me who sent you the message from Earth that brought you here. EBE, funny you should connect those two subjects. If you dig in a place, I will show you on any world map and you will find your proof. Unfortunately, I am now in the wrong country for this, but others of my people will instruct the proper government to dig there if you don't mind. You see, in a remote part of the nation you call Yugoslavia, we visited and helped the people there to build a very advanced culture over 7,000 years ago. It will be found. And what was the military and Majestic response? They sent in the US military and NATO and bombed all the evidence to smithereens, like they did in Iraq, Afghanistan and Syria, all to protect the church narrative. The EBE went on, but there is a beautiful mystery in the fact that the person who sent us your first message 49 years ago in 1899 did come from this nation originally. His transmission was sent from near here, however, in the state you call Colorado. Majestic, can you tell us his name? These people are not very bright, are they? Are there any proofs of your earlier visits? EBE, thousands of proofs if you look around. The scientist I spoke of was an electrical researcher named Nikola Tesla. You are old enough to have heard of him when he was still alive. You know, I just thought of a very good puzzle for some of you to solve. On an island you named the Isle of Pines in your Pacific Ocean, you will find what is left of a concrete landing platform we built there 115 centuries ago. 11,500 years ago. The Isle of Pines, Pines. You cannot miss finding that, since the footings we put down still cover many acres. Look for those if you would like to. No culture on your planet could have built them at that time. It would be fun for me if you ever locate them, because my great-grandfather helped to pour the mortar for them. And there is the evidence that many of our oldest structures were in part built by extraterrestrials, not humans per se, although there was at some point shared working together. But the biggest lie in that field is in Egypt. Majestic, how long do your people live? EBE, somewhat too long, I think at times. We have built up our age somewhat. It would vary, but I was alive when your whole continent was practically a question mark on the sea charts. Majestic, what about these babies we found with you? Are they human? What are we supposed to do with them? The EBE, rather indignantly, says, raise them, of course, as I would have done. Certainly they are human, perhaps more so depending on whose definition we use. You are too far away from understanding the whole science of bioengineering yet for this to be sensible, but just accept we have sown the seeds of a rich harvest for your culture, and this will continue. They are only children, but raise them well, please, because the care of children is one of the few things we do not laugh about. Now, that last statement has so many connotations it will boggle the mind. The very fact they are bringing babies here to be brought up should send DNA and biologists running for cover. It is the missing link of man, which has never been found. Because, as this show has stated, many here in the past, and perhaps now, did not come from here. There is evidence that on a certain levels are corroborated that the yellow, red and black races arrived here 40,000 years ago. Some suggest a seeding program. Others that I am aware of were refugees from various wars of the past, some of which were from Tiamat. Evidence in the Rus Vedic text, not the Indian texts, they were stolen, suggests the white race were here 640,000 years ago. You know, how can science carry on lying to the people and making up the ridiculous conspiracy theory of humanity all started from two people, Adam and Eve? The real Eve was Lilith, who stole children and is linked to the moon. She was half human and half snake, and so a chimera, also known as the Kali Ma, the Dark Mother. But if we're to believe the official narrative, for a start, that would make us all a product of incest. And the key factor is we would have all had the same blood group, shared DNA, and all be the same skin colour. This is not the case, and it makes a mockery of the official stance of those so-called science groups. One only has to look with an open mind as to why the rhesus negative mother would reject her own child in the womb. And how did science work that out so quickly? And how did they know what to put into the injection to stop the mother from rejecting the birth? Statistical analysis was not like the endless figures we get now, or the accessible databases. Most records back then were kept on cards and had to be sorted through over many years to determine a pattern. And even then, the average injection or vaccine has to be found, with testing that takes over a decade before it's launched, unless it's COVID-19. And yet this injection was made available in the 1960s. Clearly an external input was made into this, and not from here also. Another aspect of this seeding babies here is the psychological damage done to that child. Who or where are that child's parents? Where did they come from? Where is home? And why do so many in our own group feel like they don't belong here or never came from here? And that is also represented in many other groups and peoples around the world. Why put them people through that level of trauma? To those that do remember, where is their help with this matter? Who do you speak to? The psychologist? Good luck with that, because that's a one-way trip to the nut house. Due to their sheer ignorance of these wider matters and the complicity of the governments and agency clowns to cover it all up. Those people who remember fragments or otherwise To them, this lifetime is a jail sentence, an equivalent to a transgendered person knowing that they're in the wrong body. And if you'll pardon the pun, but everything to these people appears alien to them. Do they not? People who refuse to believe what they see because the government told them it's all a lie. But the question remains is, who made the government or the church the bastions of truth and proof? Because neither of them are, and both are in it for their own agendas, the control and the abuse of the people, no matter which government or indeed which church. All are and have been lying to us and have done so since the day you were born or brought here. Majestic, if you say so, but such a trip has no purpose in our way of seeing things. That was to their world. EBE, of course not, and that is why we do what we do. Listen now, because this could go on forever if you don't. We are at home wherever we park our craft. It is huge by any standards you could apply. We are concerned because this area of space is one we cross regularly as a simple matter of course, a bit like your campers who vacation at the same place every year. But suddenly we find our camping site threatened by bears, but bears are protected. You are not supposed to hurt them. So you must tame them or give up the whole vacation. Do you see that although you are a long way from travel to other stars by our standards, you will be overrunning the whole area by the next time our children pass by here? Do you see why it is vital, unless you destroy yourselves first, for us to tame you now, before you come to us? Would you let savage headhunters roam the streets of a city without sending them to school first? And this is where I personally have an issue that still rankles today in relation to the Universal Council. They talk about us destroying ourselves, but it was their element of off-world beings who, by and large, gave humans the tech and capabilities to destroy this planet in the first place. It was their ilk who have destroyed this planet several times in the past, with their Star Wars battles. It was they that destroyed the 2 moons we had in the sky previously. They who introduced the Saturn Moon Matrix. And quite frankly, the ridiculous experiment known as CERN. It was they who have engaged the greed, egotistical and arrogant entities that operate this planet, called governments, military and agencies, and by and large ignored all dialogue with the average human, unless they were of use, generally for scientific purposes like extracting DNA, blood, organs and our babies. It was they who traded us for pieces of meat to fight their wars, and they who used us for food. So a little bit of balance was and is required here when discussing who is to blame. Blaming humans for everything is the remit of the Draco. Ain't that right, Shane? The EBE went on. We cannot interfere with you any more than you could interfere with bears in your parks. Someday we would rather you join us, visited our worlds where we do make camp, and joined us on our long voyage of discovery or not. It is your destiny as long as you do not try and alter ours. Try and grow into our perspective, and all the illogic you question will seem very reasonable. It is a matter of scale. Centuries instead of decades. Someday you will be like us, and you will see. Some new short-lived species will think you are a crazy metaphysical paradox too, and you will have to learn to treat them gently as children, without letting your egos get in the way. Majestic, but with your science you could make any world your own personal paradise. Why live in spaceships? EBE, yes, and with our weapons we could take what we want as well. But why have one world when you can see them all? You all covet land, a very old idea and only natural when the supply is limited. And then said this statement, which should resonate with everyone who listens to this show. You have heard it before. Just try to accept we are in paradise when we are seeing something new. Our God is change. Our religion is understanding. Searching for truth is our greatest social challenge and purpose. When you build up your age, this will become as clear to you as to why you must breathe air. When humanity grasps those last few lines, we will be on our way to real progression. That has been denied to us by fake gods and their progression blocking program called religion. Majestic, it sounds like yours is the ideal perfect world. EBE, no. When you have more years, filling them profitably is a real problem. And the trouble with being a loving species is that you want to prove it by making more of your kind with a partner of love. Of course, this must be closely regulated in a culture such as yours, and so relationships of an intimate nature are difficult to leave to one's heart. Majestic, you speak of the heart being the seat of emotions. This is a concept we use on Earth, but we know it to be a sort of romantic fiction. Why does an advanced race like yours maintain such a notion? The heart is a romantic fiction indeed. What a bunch of jackasses. And humanity wonders why we're not progressing. With jackasses like these taking charge and making decisions for us, we will never progress beyond children. And that has to stop. And this is why we need to build the People's Club for and by the people. So we have a voice and a say. Why? because we are the voice.